I want to start this off by asking you, the person watching this, a question. And that is whether or not you feel as if you've put yourself in a situation where, or any point in your life where you force a personality out of yourself. And what do I mean by force? Like you kind of adopted these traits that allow you to become a lot more desirable to a certain, maybe like person or group of people. Maybe you did that in high school, maybe in college. I don't know, any time that you can recall doing that. And be honest, don't bullshit me. Don't bullshit yourself. Be honest. Because for me, I feel as if I started doing that in high school and it became like a habit to the point now where I still feel kind of like the remnants of it, like what's left of it in my personality. I still, for example, I'll smile or laugh and it's like subconscious. It's so forced, and I'll do it just subconsciously. And I might do it in attempts to either make the other person feel better or do it because, you know, you want to be perceived as more likable and whatnot. And lately I've been thinking little things like that I don't think are worth the effort to go to be likable, if that makes sense. Because there are ways in which I think a person can go about being more desirable, more attractive, but not if it comes at the cost of forcing your personality. You know what I mean? It just doesn't seem natural. So I'd say, I don't know, let me think. Because I just lose my train of thought. Remember, I'm fasting for Ramadan, so I just lose my train of thought here and there. But I'm trying to make these videos as unfiltered as possible and just try to, like, I don't know, ask questions and dish out value as much as I can. But basically, I've also been seeing that mostly with a lot of the content that I posted, like my podcast, for example. My YouTube, I think less so. And what I'm talking about is like forcing that personality, of course, right? Like forcing my personality through my podcast or like a certain YouTube. Like the thing about that is all of that stuff gets really, really draining really, really quick. Because, for example, on my podcast, I tried to have like the certain kind of voice that would appeal to a certain type of aroma, and it might have been like a good idea or something along those lines, but I just felt as if it wasn't authentic. It felt too forced. And now I think I want to revert back to being the way I kind of am. And I feel as if a part of me doesn't know who I am because like I forced it for so long. You know what I mean? And so now I'm trying to just ease in or lean into whoever I am or learn more about myself and just be, you know, just be me, I guess. You know, which is the basic cringy advice you hear, oh, just be yourself type beat. But I feel like that's really, really authentic when it comes to creating content and when it comes to like trying to help out your audience with like a certain problem that you might be experiencing, or you know, maybe you're also experiencing. Because I know I can't be in this boat alone. Like I know a lot of you also probably go through the same thing. Put yourselves in situations or with people where you have to force something and, you know, you don't even like these people, you don't even really care about them. You're just there because you get something out of it, but you're not willing to admit that to yourself. So, I mean, but I digress. As I was saying, I think it's too forced within my podcast, and the reason I'm doing a lot of unfiltered, unedited videos now, or the reason I want to, is because I just want to lean into being more myself, more and more, rather than trying to be this person that I'm not. So I want to do more vlog style stuff, you know. And I'm gonna try implementing a couple of different solutions, and you guys could try it with me, or maybe you might have some different solutions that you already like have in mind or might want to implement. But I'm gonna try journaling about it, about the kind of characteristics that I feel are forced within my personality, that I want to be there because I feel they make me more likable, but they're not necessarily, like I said, useful to you, and they don't necessarily, you know, shine a light on who you really are. And then also journal about who I am and the kind of person that I'm trying to become. So I think that's one solution. And then the other solution is as simple as learning to say no. Because I feel like, or I know that in a lot of scenarios, when, let's say, like, you're asked to go out, or you're invited to something or something like that, or let's say you're invited to something. I was trying to think of more examples, but I couldn't. Let's say you're invited to something, and you know, you have something else planned, but you don't want to disappoint this person, or you don't want to disappoint like these group of people. I think it's important in that moment to say no, but it's like, okay, shit, how do you go about doing that? Because that takes a lot of courage. That takes a lot of time and effort to kind of put yourself, to mentally prepare yourself, and then be like, okay, no, I can't do this and whatnot. And you don't necessarily have to be negative about it. You can be positive about it while still, you know, not trying to put up a front. So learning how to say no more, especially in a respectful manner. Oh man, like, I feel like that'll get me really, really far in trying to kind of, again, ease into the kind of person that I want to become, and not putting up this like fake personality. And so I'm thinking. And so you might ask, like, well, what are some ways you can actually like go about doing that? And I think I already gave you the solutions, and I'm gonna try implementing them myself. Like I said, this is something new for me as well. But I think at the end of the day, like, trying to say something like no is kind of like a test. And you have to be willing to do it in that moment, and you have to constantly practice, or else you won't be able to do it. It's just that simple. There's no tricks or simple tricks and tips, no bullshit you can get. You just simply got to do it. It is what it is, you know? And so journaling may be one of the easier ones, but I think trying to actively go out of your way to say no to certain situations that you don't want to be in, or like interact with certain people that you don't want to, I think that's going to be the best way to go about it. And you kind of have to just feel the discomfort of that, and there's no way around it. And your mind's going to try to find ways around it, and it won't be able to. You'll try to find or look for other ways to do it, but at the end of the day, you'll come down to the conclusion that the only thing you can really do now is just act. So the next time you're invited somewhere that you don't want to go, or maybe lost my train of thought. The next time you're invited somewhere and you don't want to go, you're going to remember, Shay said this. You know, this is a test. You're going to feel that discomfort in that very moment of wanting to say, like, not wanting to say no and wanting to say yes. Especially if you have like nothing planned. If you have something planned, it's easier because you can always use that as like not as an excuse, but as like a reason, right? Because it is a genuine reason if you have something to do. But if you don't, that is when I think you're going to be most tested. So I think it is important to then go out of your way to be able to say no, and say no in a respectful manner. One thing that I'm also learning about, not forcing like a certain personality, or how should I, not putting up a front or forcing a certain personality or like an emotion, is that you don't have to necessarily be a dickhead about it, or you don't have to be negative about it. You could just simply say things in a positive manner still, and still get the nice same effect, and you'll still have the respect. And if you don't, well, it is what it is. Probably shouldn't be around people like that anyway. So, like, let me give you 2 examples. So, one example, we'll have someone that's not putting up a front, that's not forcing their personality or their attitude, and they're a dickhead about it. And then we'll have one scenario where they aren't. So, let's say someone says, hey, we're trying to go to the park sometime. Are you trying to, pull up, hang out? You could say, no, to be honest, I don't really like hanging out with you, and like, I don't really care to, because, this is lame, that is lame. Like, you just, like, you completely just shit on them, basically. Yeah, there's no nice way to put it. You shit on them. But then the good way to go about it is like, hey, no, because I simply just don't feel like it, or I'm not in the mood to. And again, that's not putting up, I don't think that's putting up a front. I think that's still being honest without being a dickhead. And I feel like, and I do understand to a degree how that can seem still kind of fake. Like, you might think you might not like a certain person, and so you're like, wait, Shay, if I don't like them, then shouldn't I just tell them I don't like them and I don't want to hang out? It's like, why the hell are you in a situation or a predicament where you're interacting with someone you don't like? It just doesn't make sense to me. That's why it's going to be naturally hard to say no to people that you don't already naturally like, because you weren't honest about it to begin with. So most of your relationships, or I know this is getting a little bit sidetracked, but I think it kind of adds on to the point. Most of the kind of relationships you get in, or anything like that, like, you should do in an honest sense, because then that'll allow you to just be a lot more, like, create a good foundation. Just be honest about it and make it a lot easier for you to say no. And so that then leaves one last problem, which is like, and I know this is getting like way too deep into it. It's like, wow, we're talking about forced personality, and you're saying you could implement ways of saying no, but now you're getting into like, oh, but this and that, But I still think it's important, because they're like little nuanced problems, you know what I mean? And so there is a situation in which you still don't, like, up until this video, like, you watched it, and I'm telling you to, set an honest foundation for most of your relationships and friendships. But obviously there are going to be some where you aren't, or you haven't set an honest foundation. You've like lied to these people for whatever reason, because you might have had an incentive that you don't like telling yourself about, because you had something to gain. But whether it be like something and let me make this more specific, because you're like, oh, well, what do you mean, like, I'm not evil, like, what do you think I had to gain, like, what is this shit? I mean, like, in a sense, like, maybe you had something to gain, like, sexually, maybe you had something to gain, like, status wise, maybe you had something to gain, like, monetarily, like, I don't even know if that's a goddamn word, but oh well, like, you know, related to money. Bingo bango. So you might have had, like I said, an incentive to be around these people, and it might have not have been an honest one. So it's like, how do you get yourself out of a situation like that? And you do it in an honest manner, but you could still do it without being a dickhead. You could still be honest and still not be a dickhead. Does that make sense? You could still cut off friendships and not be a dickhead about it. You could end it up in a nice way. Just like if you were to break up with someone, just like if you were to cut off a friendship, you don't have to be like, oh, screw this, fuck this guy, I'm not putting more energy into him, like, cut him off. You know, you could give people a chance and be like, hey, look, you know, your goals, your values don't align with mine, you know, that's simple. And so, you know, it'd be nice if they would align, and if you would make an effort to make them align, but it's completely understandable if you don't. And this is a very, very generic way of approaching it, right? It's understandable that you don't, because you have to understand that they're their own person and they're going to choose where they want to go down, whatever path they want to go down. And if your paths don't align and your values don't align, your morals don't align, and they're not willing to put in the energy to, like, kind of blossom that relationship into whatever it may be, then cool, you go your separate ways. But before I keep saying anything, look at this view. Holy. One other thing I want to point out is, like, I was really bad about recording in front of people and walking past people in the park. So literally, as I'm making this video, I'm implementing one other step that I was going to talk about, which is which I think, now that I think about it, actually it more so applies to me, but it's being myself in front of even, like, random strangers. Like, think about it, right? If you've ever thought about making content or recording or doing something in public, you'll always feel like, oh dude, I'm gonna look stupid, this is gonna be embarrassing. But right now, I just walked past, like, I don't even know how many different people, probably like 3 or 4 different families, and I was just like, I was still recording, and I was still like talking and, you know, looking crazy or whatever. But, you know, I understand that it's gonna take a level of discomfort and pain to allow myself to be comfortable with recording in front of people, and you just gotta face it. Like, there's no way around it. There's no cheap tricks. There's no 4 ways to do this, or top 7 ways to whatever the hell. It's just like, you once you've learned the sufficient information, you just kind of have to go about doing it. So that's I think my ways of, so far, that I'm going to try implementing, and you can implement with me, of trying to not put up a fake personality or a front, which is, one, journaling and just being honest about the kind of person you don't want to be and how you don't want to put up a front, and then the kind of person that you do want to become. Second is, like, what was second? Jeez, I'm forgetting. Yeah, your capacity to say no. You want to be able to say no more, and because, brain fart. You want to be able to say no more, just so you're not just trying to be likable all the time, and, you know, you're doing your own thing, and, you know, you need to be able to test yourself and do these kinds of things. And then, last but not least, I guess this is more so like content creation, and maybe I can't, and I kind of thought of it on the spot, and maybe I can't think of, like, the other implementations of it in the real world, but being comfortable with doing certain things in front of others, like content creation. And I know that's like, whoa, wait, that's way too general. Like, that could mean anything, dog. Like, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? So, but I guess that was more for me. But if you could find a way to kind of implement it and think about it, then, I mean, all power to you. that honestly be the best way to go about it. But yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say. Yeah. Besides that, again, just look at this view. Just look at this beautiful weather. There's a nice breeze blowing and everything. It's so nice. Yeah, I think I'm still trying to think of other stuff that I could talk about or think about, but I think I've kind of ran out. Yeah. So on my podcast from now on and on my YouTube, I'm going to try being as authentic and honest as I can. And honestly, this is going to be a slow process. That this isn't something that can just like click and just happen. You have to actively think about choosing to, lean into the discomfort of not being likable, because for people like you and for people like you and for people like me, if you can relate to me, we've habituated ourselves or made it a habit to kind of, do whatever it takes to be more likable in effort to gain some sort of either like status or, something along those lines, or status, anything sexual, like I said, or something monetary. Like, we've all done it. So it's going to be a slow process. It's going to take time, and I urge you to do the same and try to implement these steps and take them with me. And like later on, I might talk about on a podcast episode, like go through exact steps and exact ways to try leaning into becoming more of yourself. So yeah, that's all I got for y'all, and yeah, take it easy. Peace.